You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Welcome to Believe in Mavs right here on the Believe Network. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports, joined by my co-host, Alex Tassopoulos. Alex, what's up, man? Good to see you here on Believe in Mavs, the inaugural episode of Believe in Mavs right here on the Believe Network.
Hey, Kevin. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Mavs in the Western Conference Finals. It's been a while since we've been in this position. Happy to be talking some ball. Watch our boy Luka Doncic and the rest of the guys get after the Warriors tonight.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun out in Golden State for game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. The Mavericks dropping the first game on the road. But hey, they've loved spotting each of these teams in the first couple rounds, the first game. So I guess this is par for the course so far, having dropped game 1 to Utah, dropped game 1 to Phoenix. Right. We all know how those series ended when it came to the Mavericks and winning those series. So maybe they just want to make the Warriors feel like they got a fighting chance in this series before they ultimately get it done. Before we go any further, you're wearing, I believe, what is to be the only Dorian Finney-Smith Florida jersey running around this great United States of America. Is that right? Is that what I'm looking at right there?
Well, we'll have to put it out in the ether. We'll have to put some feelers out there to see if anyone else also has the jersey. But I feel like it's somewhat unique of a jersey, and I'm happy to rock DFS's Florida jersey, number 10. He's just a guy that doesn't get enough love, especially in just the broad stroke NBA media. The guy is a fantastic defender. He deserves to be on an all defensive team. I know Luka obviously was advocating that throughout the year. He's very much the leader on defense for this team. And I think that because of that, he's going to have to do a lot in this game, in game 2. Because what I saw, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I saw a lot of like initial effort defensively from our Mavs, but there was not a lot of follow through, right? So there was a hard closeout. But of course, this is a Warriors team that has a lot of motion, a lot of back cuts, and it's not enough just to get that first contest out on a guy who's in the triple threat, who's ready to shoot. Because as we saw on that one fast break, kind of secondary fast break play where Steph gets the screen, and then there was a late contest by Dwight Powell, and he hits it kind of from the right wing. You got to be aggressive. You got to stick with it for 24 seconds. That's one thing I'm definitely going to be looking for in game 2 for these Mavs.
Yeah, when you look back at game 1 and the constant movement of the Golden State Warriors, it's not just about the first action. It's about the second, the third, the fourth action. That ball movement and the way that they are able to get things moving, whether it be, guys like Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson running off of screens and pin downs, trying to get open shots, but the overall ball movement with Draymond Green facilitating things. It takes a while for a team to get used to that. And I think the Mavericks found out the hard way in game 1 that this isn't the Utah Jazz. This isn't the Phoenix Suns, where you see a lot more in terms of, screening action, in terms of, methodically being able to get, mid-range as far as the Phoenix Suns were concerned, pick and roll stuff that Utah likes to run, obviously, with what they've got going on there. It is constant motion with the Golden State Warriors. And if you don't find yourself sticking to guys, closing airspace, you're going to find yourself getting run ragged the way that they did in game 1. And I think that was a big, big difference in what you saw in the first 2 series versus what you saw in game 1, is that you got to get used to that speed, that quickness, and just overall ball movement that the Golden State Warriors like to use. I think the Mavericks should be a little bit better with that going into game 2 tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd expect so. There's just something really demoralizing about that end of the shot clock play that Klay had where he dropped it off to Looney for the weak side dunk. And I think that's something that I've watched and something to correct that the Mavs have had from both series prior, where in late shot clock situations, 4 seconds left, they kind of have this feeling where they've already won the possession, but you've got 4 more seconds and there's a lot that can happen in those 4 seconds. Whereas on offense, I think when we're in those positions, we get quite stagnant. Defensively, I think we let up a lot. And obviously this is a very savvy team, veterans who have played deep in the playoffs before, and they're never going to make it easy for you. But I do expect the Mavs to bounce back tonight in some capacity. What that means, we'll have to wait and see. We saw the Celtics, they just absolutely whopped the Heat last night on their home court. This has been an interesting playoffs just all across the board. Is this something that we're going to see going forward, where there's going to be games with very high variance, with large leads, in the modern NBA, this just feels like something that fans need to get used to.
Yeah, because I think you looked back at the Phoenix series, while it did go the 7 games, none of those games were close by any means. And we thought that we were finally going to get a close game in game 7. That didn't happen either. And then you look at the Boston Miami series so far and through 2 games, Boston in both first halves dominated the first half. The difference between game 1 and game 2 is Miami was able to turn things around in the second half. Miami wasn't able to do much of anything, obviously, in the second half of game 2. Here we are tied at 1-1 in that series. I think going for tonight, when it comes to the Mavericks, what they got out of Andrew Wiggins, they got 15 points for him by halftime.
Right.
That was huge for them, because if you told me, Alex, that you were going to hold Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry to 4-14 shooting for just 7 points in the first half, I would have told you you're probably up by 10 points at the half.
Right.
But then you don't account for Andrew Wiggins, who was playing really well offensively. Kevon Looney got involved early on. I think at times what has been a problem for this team throughout the course of the season, their inability to close out possessions with defensive rebounds, allowing for second chance points, second chance rebounds, and that got them a little bit as well. I remember a specific one. Stephen Curry misses not one, but both free throws, gets his own rebound, and next thing you know, he hits an elbow jumper, and he gets the 2 points right back, in the course of that game. So their abilities to have to close out possessions, I think, is going to be huge. But more importantly, you've got to account for other guys. I think Jordan Poole played probably one of his best games in quite some time in the playoffs, because in the series against Denver, he was playing really well. Didn't play great against Memphis, but he came back in a big way in game 1 for the Warriors. It's those other guys that you have to account for, because, Klay and Steph were pretty much going to get theirs. But right. Wiggins, Looney, and Poole, I thought, were really good for them in game 1.
Yeah, Poole really impressed me. I've been watching him like a hawk all these playoff series, partly just because he's so entertaining. And when he gets, within 6 feet of the basket, what he can do with the spin around the rim and his finishing ability, his up and unders, a lot of it, Brunson, Luka-esque with his pivot work for sure. Although he's a bit more fleet of foot than the two of them are. But if he's shooting threes well, that opens a lot of things up, because I'd love to, from a defensive concept standpoint, I'd love to turn him into a jump shooter, right?
Sure.
But he hit a couple of, decently contested threes on the closeout. He hit that the early step back that I think took it to like 22-16. So he played really well. He was, 4 for 5 early on shooting, and they were 17 for 23. All the other guys besides Steph and Klay in the first half. So what I didn't like about what the Mavs did for certain parts of the first half specifically, especially because the 3-point shots weren't falling, was attack the matchups like I thought they were going to. And I know that our game is different than the Warriors, and it's not as much movement off ball. But I think I'd like to see that turned up like 20% extra, a little more off ball screens, a little more back cuts. Luka can find those guys, but it allowed the defensive schematics of the Warriors to be pretty sound, and they could kind of play zone, a sort of man zone the entire game. And the guys off ball had a much easier time than, the guys in the Sun series did, and the defenders, especially in the Jazz series. But of course, that a lot of that had to do with us breaking down the initial defender, with the dribble.
Yeah, I think you saw a lot of different looks being thrown at the Mavericks offensively. Luka Doncic seeing box and one, zones. You saw a lot of different things that the Warriors tried to do to kind of, in essence, junk up the game from a defensive standpoint. And we've seen that from time to time. I remember Toronto did it at one point. I remember Indiana did it at one point, trying to throw some different looks at him to try and get him confused and trying to get him out of rhythm and out of sync offensively. I don't think you'll see too much more of that, because you can only run that so much before Luka is able to diagnose it and figure it out and really be able to exploit, those defensive coverages. I think one thing that I didn't like offensively from the Mavericks is that they did not put Stephen Curry into much action in game 1. One of the things that we know about Stephen Curry throughout his years, while he's a great 3-point shooter, terrific offensively, he can be a revolving door at times on the defensive end. So I thought not getting him into actions more enough to force him to play defense, I thought was a big missed opportunity, because we know how much energy he's going to expend throughout a game offensively. You got to make him expend that same energy on the defensive end as well. So I think getting him into more actions with, screening roles, getting him and hunting him, I think it needs to be a definite change going into game 2 for the Mavericks offensively.
And it was such a good strategy against Chris Paul in that series in Phoenix, against Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Brunson and Luka thrive in the low post and in the high post. So it makes a lot of sense to hunt for him like you're talking about and really physically wear him down. Because he's wearing himself down on the offensive end where he's just running around. It's like JJ Redick at Duke. He did the same thing at Davidson. He's nonstop. What do you think about some of the murmurs and I don't know if it's been confirmed by Luka yet that he was sick in game 1, and do you see that having some sort of impact if it's valid in game 2 as well?
Yeah, one source I did talk to said that, he wasn't necessarily feeling great in game 1, but he is fine now going into game 2. So that report that Kevin Harlan had, because he was the only one I had seen in the report, and it kind of came out kind of late. But I talked to one source today, and they said, he wasn't necessarily feeling great, but he's fine going into game number 2 tonight. So hopefully that's a good sign that he'll be okay going into game 2. So
I mean, he was on the court, right? So that's, if you're on the court, you're at least not too sick where you can't play. So well, obviously that was something that comes out, and of course has meaningful impact on the game. Just got to look forward. We haven't discussed this, but are you a DC Comics fan at all?
I'm more of a Marvel guy, but I get down with Batman, Superman,
sure.
But I'm a Marvel guy. To be quite honest.
That's fair. I love the MCU movies. Went and saw Doctor Strange last weekend. I'll hold my thoughts on that one for another pod, I think. But if you're familiar, and if anyone's familiar with DC villains out there, one of the biggest and baddest is named Vandal Savage, and he's a guy that has a huge scar across his face. So I'm looking for Luka to make his Vandal Savage impact. I've got the side-by-side photo ready to go. So whenever he has that big game, which hopefully it's tonight, game 2, that's coming out. And I'm gonna ride that, and I'm gonna need your support on that to take Luka. His next new nickname is Vandal Savage.
I like it. I think I saw somebody put out on Twitter like hashtag Slovenian Savage or something like that too. I was like, that's pretty good too. And it's funny. It's always something in a series or a game that wakes him up. Right. And it was the trash talk and him going back and forth with Devin Booker. Obviously, some of the physicality and the stuff that was happening in the Utah series, kind of woke him up. Maybe that, Scarface like scar across his face is going to wake him up going into game 2 and the rest of the series. But I think I feel good even with the way that things went down in game 1. I like in a lot of ways the process in which the Mavericks went about getting their shots offensively. I do think they could have tweaked some things instead of, they took their first 20 shots of the game. 15 of them were from the 3-point line, and they only made 3 of them. When shots are falling, you got to find a way to start attacking the rim. And I thought that there was a missed opportunity because Golden State really doesn't have a tremendous interior defense, if you will, even with Looney in there, that you can find ways to break guys down off the dribble and be able to get into the paint. I thought Spencer Dinwiddie did a good job of that throughout the course of the game, attacking the rim. I would love to see Brunson do some more of that, but it takes a little bit used to getting to the length and the athleticism that the Golden State Warriors present on the defensive end, especially with an Andrew Wiggins, the way that he was playing in game 1 for the Warriors as well.
Yeah, I thought Wiggins, as far as any defender that I've seen on Luka, when he gets in and he slows his pace and he gets, his 1-2 off the gather is nearly impossible to stop. I thought Andrew Wiggins, that secondary contest that he had was as good as anyone I've ever seen in the NBA against Luka. And like you said, Luka, he'll figure it out as he always does. But it's going to be interesting. I expect Kidd to make the adjustments. I've really enjoyed watching him blossom as a head coach, making those adjustments with the rest of the coaching staff as well. Can't go without shouting out D-Arm, former Maverick right there.
That's my guy, man. DA, that's my guy, man. I love talking to DA before games. That's my guy.
He's great, but I'm excited about what the Mavs are going to present. The Warriors stadium seemed pretty electric. It seemed like a good spot. I know it's the Chase Center now, but I think that the fans are happy to be there. For me, it just feels a little bit different. There wasn't as much jawing as there was in the Phoenix series. In the post pressers, it's not like this Warriors team has been there multiple times. Obviously, the Suns went to the finals last year, but they didn't feel as, and maybe some of this is strategic, right? Because they don't want to give Luka that motivation, but they feel a lot more calm and poised after that game 1 win and knowing that it's going to be a long series. So that scares me a bit. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, there's a healthy respect from the Warriors to Luka Doncic and his capabilities as a player, and you'll see that throughout the course of this series. But this is a different Warriors team than we've seen in the past 6-7 years. This isn't the dynastic team that can, go off for, 20-3 runs and put you away in the course of a matter of 2-3 minutes. This team is older, more savvy, but obviously the experiences of Clay and Steph and Draymond, they've been together now for 10 years and helping this young group of guys, whether it be, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, who have not necessarily been in these kinds of situations, is invaluable for that team. And then you've got some other veterans on the team. When you look at Looney, who's been there and done that, Otto Porter Jr., veteran in this league, they've got a good mix of young and veteran guys that allows you to be able to have that kind of poise in these moments to where they're not going to get too high or too low, because those three in particular, Curry, Clay, and Green, they know what it means to win championships and what it takes to have to pace yourself throughout the course of a series like this. The other guys are learning that, and I thought they acquitted themselves well in game 1 in that way.
Yeah, there's nothing more demoralizing than Otto Porter Jr. hitting a late shot clock Dirk deep 2 fadeaway.
Yeah, that was so weird. I'm just like, really, this is like, that was one of the moments. I think Looney hit like a jumper as well. It was just like, all right, okay, this is just must be their night, because those things are kind of out of the ordinary for what, they like to do, offensively at times. But you give them credit. They played the way that they did. And now going into game 2, I'm interested to hear from you, obviously. What's the line looking like tonight as far as what that's going to look like going into game 2, given what these two teams did in game 1 and the Mavericks losing by 25?
Yeah, well,
the Golden State Warriors.
Believe in Mavs, gratefully sponsored by betonline.ag. If you go to betonline.ag today, you can see that line. The Mavs are +6, +213 if you're feeling frisky and you want to money line them to win the game. If you think they're going to bounce back. If you think they're going to repeat the 2-0 series start like they did against Phoenix, Golden State Warriors, obviously they're -6, they're -253 to win the game. The over-under is 213 points, 213.5 points. So again, that's at betonline.ag. Use the promo code BELIEVE. You'll get 50% off your welcome bonus. What do you think about that line, though? You think, would you take +6, us to cover it? It's going to be a close game. We just mentioned there are no close games anymore in the playoffs. So I don't necessarily see that happening. I think I'm on the side of, if you think the Warriors are going to win, take a -6. If you think the Mavs have any chance of coming within 6, then they can win the game and just take them to win it.
Yeah, I would err on the side of probably taking the -6 with the Warriors. Like you mentioned, there's been no close games throughout these playoffs, and I don't necessarily see that happening here either. It's just really weird how this has gone so far, and the Warriors looked extremely comfortable. I think if you're going to see a close game, it's going to be within maybe 3 to 4 points, maybe a little bit more than that or a little bit less than that. I don't see either the Warriors are going to blow out the Mavs or the Mavs are going to blow out the Warriors, I feel like, in game 2. I don't know how particularly close it will be, but I think that was a similar line in game 1. I want to say it was -6.5 or so in game 1 in favor of the Warriors being on their home floor. So it sounds like they're keeping it pretty similar as far as that over under in terms of the points and what we're looking at from, a betting standpoint. So, hey, we'll see. We'll see exactly how this goes.
Proceed with caution if you are.
Proceed with caution, exactly.
If you're going to spend money. What do you think, just from a macro level, any guys on the Mavs specifically that you're looking at for a gritty performance for down the line? Obviously, like we're in the Western Conference Finals right now. We win this series, we're going to the finals. That means a lot, especially for these role players. we look like this is definitely a team when you look at roster creation, it's top down, right? It starts with
Sure.
Luka and then it's everyone else. What are you looking for from guys like Brunson or Maxi Kleba? Maybe even if Josh Green somehow gets minutes, guys like Frank, what are they looking to do? Dwight Powell, certainly, to kind of secure their spot on this roster. Like, is that something that a lot of these guys are vying for, you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's 3 guys that are eligible for extensions this summer. It's Maxi Kleba, Trey Burke, and Dwight Powell who are all eligible for extensions. And I think the biggest question for me is twofold. One, what do you do with Dwight Powell? Do you feel like it's time to go ahead and move on from him? I know he's been a leader on this team for a long time. Obviously, he's extremely respected in that locker room, and the connection that he has with Luka Doncic in terms of his rim running has been well documented for, several years now. But they've got to get better on the interior for this team to ultimately get to where they want to go and winning a championship. While it's been fantastic watching this team make the surprise run that they've had to the Western Conference Finals, I still don't think this is a team that you look at long-term and say, this is the group that can get you to multiple Western Conference Finals appearances, NBA Finals appearances. They've got a superstar, but how do you get the most out of him on both ends of the floor? And I think you got to find a way to get yourself an athletic big man who can not only block shots, maybe hit some 3-pointers. Hello, Miles Turner. Possibly, that's a guy that immediately comes to mind.
Local.
Yeah, exactly. Local guy as well, who can not only hit the 3, but also block shots. Great shot blocker. And I know people get charged up about this, but ESPN's Tim McMahon earlier on this.
Are you going to do it? Are you going to
Look, to me, it makes a lot of sense. I know people don't like Rudy Gobert's hands in terms of the offensive end, not necessarily a great catcher of the basketball, but what he is and what he'll have here versus what he had in Utah was guys that actually defend the perimeter and aren't the revolving doors like Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell are in Utah. So where he's not having to do all that extra work to defend guys because he's trying to clean up the mess left by Mitchell and Conley, allowing guys to blow by him all the time. He wouldn't have that problem here. Now, obviously, there's questions about, how would he fit, his money. Are you willing to pay another max guy that kind of money because he's already on that max deal that he's on, especially knowing that Luka's max contract kicks in at the beginning of this upcoming season.
Right.
But Gobert, to me, makes a lot of sense. It's just whether or not you feel like he can assimilate to this locker room and whether or not be the kind of defensive anchor that you want long-term, given his limited offensive skills, in my mind.
Yeah, I if you watch that Jazz Mavs series, you know how impactful he can be on any given possession defensively, especially when you have an assembly of other very competent defenders like the Mavericks do. And then you have a guy like Luka, who a lot of his defensive effort or a lot of his defensive competency is due to whether he has effort or whether he has a lack of effort. Right.
Yeah.
And if he gives a hard closeout and a guy's, he gives a hard closeout in the corner, if you got Rudy Gobert in the paint, that's a tough shot for whoever is getting into the mid range. Either they're going for a floater because they got to put it over Gobert, but a lot of times they're just kicking it out immediately because they're so scared of that guy. And his length, obviously, is it's well documented. He's got a couple of DPOYs, and rightly so. He's a great defensive anchor. So I certainly see the value there and why he would be so impactful. I'm not really worried about him offensively if we were to end up getting him because Luka will figure it out for him, right? He hasn't had, I know Mike Conley is a great playmaker, but not necessarily the Mike Conley that's been playing with Rudy Gobert for the last couple of years. No, I mean, I think if anyone looks at, we were talking about Dorian Finney-Smith at the beginning of the podcast last year, the heavy criticism was that Maxi and Dorian, while they are versatile defenders, were asked to do too much. And even just the addition of a guy like Reggie Bullock, who can certainly defend 1 through 3 and has done it as well as anyone this year, especially, when we're matched up against Steph, he's kind of been the Steph stopper. So I hope Reggie gets his legs underneath him. I think there was a little bit of tiredness from the 7-game series against the Suns.
Agreed.
But that has opened things up for Dorian to guard more wings, to guard more 3-4s. Maxi needs the help in the paint because he's a great backup big, but he's not a 40 minutes a game big. He's not a 35 minutes a game big. He's like a 28 minutes a game. Obviously that pick and pop with him and Luka is excellent. He's been shooting the three ball really well.
Especially when they go 5 out and they go small and he's able to extend beyond the 3-point line. That's where he's most effective with his defensive versatility, then be able to knock down shots from the outside when they go 5 out like that.
But to pair a very competent rim protector, whether it's Gobert or someone else, my biggest lament about March Madness this year was watching the Duke Blue Devils play, because every time I watched Mark Williams play, so did everyone else. And he just jumped up draft boards, rightly so. He's a fantastic player. But initially I was like, oh, could he fall mid-20s? There'll be guys like I think Koloko from Arizona might be there. He's an interesting guy. But we'll definitely, have to dig more into this as we continue to evaluate the prospects, and the Mavs are going to be picking at 26. So who knows who's going to be there. But if, there's a lot of guys. I mean, second round, do we have our second round pick this year? Or we got,
I believe so. I'll have to check, but I believe so. I'll have to check, but yeah.
Yeah. Picking up a kind of rim running big, I think would be a good addition to the roster. But if we want to compete multiple championships down the line, like you're saying, it's got to be a guy who's done it before and can immediately slot in and make that defensive impact. But yeah, I'm excited to see. Hopefully I eat a little crow here and the Mavericks win game 2 on a fantastic defensive performance, and Dwight Powell has 5 blocks, but we'll see.
If Dwight Powell has 5 blocks, they're winning this game by 20. That would be an amazing performance from DP. I think tonight, looking at this game, you got to find a way to stick close to Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, close the airspace, get a little more physical with him. It reminds me, this offense with the Warriors over the past 10 years, it reminds me a lot of how we looked at the Rams with their the greatest show on turf. What the Patriots is that they got physical with them, got them, bump and run, try to get physical with. So my point is, if you're the Mavericks, you got to find a way to introduce the physicality into this series, get them off their spots, be able to get some things that disrupts the timing and the rhythm. Because if you allow that ball movement, they're going to be running you off of screens. They're going to run their pin downs. They're going to run all those flares and all those actions that just really constantly is getting you moving. You're going to find yourself getting wore out pretty quickly on the defensive end. And you were talking about Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock. They've played heavy minutes throughout the course of these playoffs. The best thing that the Warriors want to do is, well, if your guys are going to be out there 35, 40 minutes, we're just going to run you ragged all night long and see if you can keep up with this. And if they can't, they're going to find themselves getting a lot of open shots. And then offensively, got to see the Mavericks attack the paint early on. Again, I thought the process in which they got some of their shots early on was good, but I thought they went away from it a little too much at the beginning of the game. When shots are falling, find a way to attack the rim and find ways to get Jalen Brunson on the post a little bit, get Luka Doncic onto the block a little bit, let those two make things happen from that post and allow things to happen offensively. And as you know, as well as anybody, it's a make or miss league. Right. You got to knock down shots. And obviously they didn't do that in game 1 to the tune of, shot 44 threes, made like 10 or 11 of them. You got to be better than that. In game
I think it was 48, which is crazy.
Yeah, 40. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
which is nuts. What do you think? If you're a kid, how are you talking to your guys to slow down the pace? Because they had 18 fast break points, and it felt like it was a clear goal of this Warriors team to push the pace, especially getting Luka to scramble defensively on his way back. Especially, what doesn't help is when he's complaining about the call that he didn't get. Sure, that makes it even worse. But what are you doing to mitigate that pace as best as you can if you're the Mavs right now?
It's gonna sound weird, but make shots. I mean, the best thing that the Warriors did was they were able to get out on the break because they got a lot of missed shot opportunities from the Mavericks. So the best way you can get out on the break is close out possessions with rebounds and then push the pace as quickly as you can to get up the floor for transition buckets, or at least get some secondary offense on things like, trailing threes and those kinds of things. So they've got to find a way to make shots to slow things down, because here's the big problem with the Mavericks is they are so methodical in how they run their offense. They're running the shot clock down to 5, 4, and 3 seconds, that if you don't capitalize by running all that clock, by getting either something going to the rim to create a foul to get to the free throw line, or being able to finish the possession with a made shot, it really makes things difficult for you offensively to remain efficient, because you're just running down the clock, missing shots. The other team is going down on the other end, either on the fast break or two prolific 3-point shooters, where if you go for 0 points on your end, and next thing you know, Clay or Steph are hitting a three, you're going to find yourself getting behind pretty quickly in ball games. So if you're going to play that kind of offense, you've got to finish possessions with points. Otherwise, it could be a long night, regardless of how this series looks, if the Mavericks don't make shots in this way.
Yeah, I love Luka. I think he's all in all, if I were to rank my players, he would be ahead of Steph Curry. But there's something about when Steph Curry has the ball behind the arc where I think it's going in every single time.
Yep.
And the percentages haven't allowed me, and the eye test hasn't allowed me to feel the same way about Luka with his step back. And I think that, if you're listening to the broadcast, you'll hear the same thing again and again and again, especially if it's a Van Gundy. But they'll say, a step back three from Luka, especially when the team is down, that's a thank you for the defense, right?
It is, yeah.
And he has to stay in attack mode, because that always opens things up. So I'm excited about game 2. I'm excited for our recap that will definitely be coming after it at some point. And excited to keep going on Believe in Mavs with you, Kevin.
Yeah, excited about this journey. I thought this was a great first inaugural episode of Believe in Mavs right here, and I'm looking forward to this journey with you, Alex. Obviously, jumping on in the Believe Network, I think is going to be amazing, and obviously we're going to have a lot to talk about when it comes to this Mavericks team. Hopefully, we're talking about a win after game 2, and then game 3 on Sunday, game 4 on Tuesday. We're going to be getting you recapped with everything here on Believe in Mavs, getting you caught up on everything going on in the Western Conference Finals. Alex, can they find you on Twitter? Where can they find you on social media before we get out of here today?
Yeah, I'm at Toss.0, like Tosh.0, but Toss.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Yeah, creative, clever. Yeah, not the best branding, because what are you? You're Kevin Gray Sports?
Kevin Gray Sports. Yeah, try to keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be the one that posts the Vandal Savage meme with Luka after we win game 2. That'll be me.
It'll go viral there. So looking forward to that. So definitely catch us all over social media. Looking forward to obviously game 2 of the Western Conference Finals between the Mavericks and the Warriors. Can the Mavericks heat up their series at one game apiece before they come back to Dallas for games 3 and 4, and hopefully what will be a long series. So Alex, appreciate the time, man. Looking forward to game 2, and looking forward to getting back together with you here and Believe in Mavs to get this thing caught up for all the Mavericks fans, and the MFFLs are going to be loving this podcast here on the Believe in Mavs on the Believe
Absolutely.
Network.
Mavs fans for life. All right, y'all.
Y'all have a good day. We'll talk to you later.